Yeah, that clock, Ross, was counting down.
It's right
And
there.
yeah, hit zeros, and I saw you pop up. So, welcome everybody in. We are unbelievably at week 16. It's gone by quickly, and it's also feels like I've been running a marathon. So, both things can feel true. But yeah, towards the end of the race, feeling pretty good. How about you? Are you staying warm?
Staying warm. I was outside a lot yesterday, more than I wanted to. Just running last minute Christmas errands, getting last minute gifts from my son and stuff like that. I went out this morning to the grocery store right across the street from me. I live about 6 blocks from Soldier Field, and can say that it is slightly warmer today than it was yesterday, which is good news. We're going in the right direction, but it's still very cold.
Yeah. How much is the weather influencing what you're thinking about today?
That's a great question. I think specifically for Bears, Bills, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, obviously. I trust both of these quarterbacks in the cold. But we're also going to talk about in a little bit. I don't trust a guy like Malik Willis in Nashville, 9 degrees. -20 in Chicago is a lot different than 9 degrees in Nashville, because you kind of expect one and you certainly don't expect the other. And for guys that have to adjust to that, it's very difficult. So, I think about 80% of the country right now is going through this cold spell. And I think it's going to make for a lot of very interesting football games today, coupled with the fact that today's Saturday. It's been throwing me off all day.
Yeah.
Because you and I are doing this right now. It's Saturday. It felt like a Sunday when I woke up. It doesn't even feel like Christmas Eve. I'm all over the place.
Everything just feels football to me in the last. I was on a call, totally different thing. I was on a call with some people, environmental economics group I'm part of. And someone said something about, well, that was like last week, right? And I go, you could convince me it was any day in the last 5 weeks. Like, I have no idea where I'm at. I can't, it's like I said, you're just, I'm kind of in a fugue state at some point. But just a note, I don't know if anybody really watches this, but I gave us both credit for the Jags game. We made it public. We could use a little boost. But we made it public on Twitter. We've been pretty on that, and like that was something I felt pretty strong about. So we made it public. I gave us both a point for the Jags pick. You should follow us on Twitter. We talk gambling all the time on Twitter. So I don't normally do that, but like I felt pretty strong going in, like this was going to count, and that was to me, it was just that was free money.
It was some of these games, we're kind of looking at these lines. We're like, really? And it kind of feels like they call it a rat, a rat line, right? It's kind of like free cheese a little bit. And that certainly was. You're betting against Zach Wilson in the rain. Trevor Lawrence is obviously the better quarterback, the better player, the better team with the Jaguars. And that was free money. That was easy. Yeah. Hopefully you guys cashed in Thursday night and got a little Christmas bonus.
Yeah, a little head start. That's why I always think Thursday night, like a little head start to the week. Yes. I seem to do overall pretty well on Thursday nights, and I think it's because it's just one game, and I have the time to think about it. Now, Thursday nights can be really weird games, so that's the only other thing is they can be really goofy. They can go against what you think. The Sunday game, how hurt these guys are from the week before, really does kind of seem to matter. But anyway, let's get into this week. Let's get into today. Where do you want to start on this board? I kind of like the board today. Which
I do. Yeah, me too. And we got some Sunday games tomorrow, right? We got 3 kind of weird Sunday games. That was Roger Goodell trying to put his foot down and compete with the NBA, and he kind of got 3 duds a little bit with the they look good week 1, and now they look really bad. But I'm going to start. I kind of teased this a little bit on Twitter earlier this morning, but I'm going to start in Nashville. Listen, Titans at home. -3.5, but Ryan Tannehill out for the year. They're missing half of their offensive line. I know Derrick Henry does work against the Texans. I know the Texans stink in stopping the run, but I still think I like the Texans in this spot. I am putting a blue chip to cover today at that +3.5. It's going to be cold in Nashville, and it never gets that cold in Nashville. And Malik Willis, who did not look good in those starts early on in the year when he had to start for Tannehill, now is put in a tough spot. And I think Lovey's one of those old school guys where he doesn't tank. Like he's going to compete today. He's going to put it all out there. And I think the Texans can win this football game.
They've been not messing around here. Like the last couple of weeks, they've been taking good teams to the brink.
Yeah.
They should have beat the Chiefs last week,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
that was definitely the case.
And the
I'm just going
Cowboys
to
week
join you.
before.
I have been talking about it all week too.
Mhm.
I've been talking. Maybe it's a full bet chip. There's some other lines I just like a little better right now, and so I'm going to
Mhm.
start it off as a blue chip. Maybe it grows by the end of the show, or maybe I add another one to it. But because I like some of these lines,
Mhm.
let I'm gonna keep betting the Lions.
Yeah.
2.5 point favorites on the road. I think that this Lions to me look like they're ready to run out the string. They're going to try to win the last three football games, get into
Mhm.
that playoffs as the seventh seed. I think they're a fun story. I'm gonna put a full chip on them because they've been treating me well.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is the team that I had thought we were going to see. Looked like I was wrong, right? Coming
Mhm.
out of the blocks, they stumbled. But this is the team that I thought I was going to see. Competent offense, and not more than competent, good offense. And you guys are getting healthy, and they're really putting it together. I like the Lions. I know that the Panthers have been playing tougher football, but I still just don't believe in them as a football team overall. Less than a field goal, that's kind of inviting you to take that Lions.
I'm actually going to join you with that full chip as well. This is the kind of football game where you just two teams are going in completely different directions, right? Um, the Lions look like they're a playoff team, but if you want to actually be a playoff team, you've got to win this football game today, and I think you have to win it pretty convincingly. So I do like the Lions a lot in this spot. I also, the Panthers last week, they lost like a lot of guys in their secondary, and for some reason, Steve Wilkes just still felt compelled to just completely blitz, and he got burned by Deontay Johnson. It's like that's the one thing that you can't do when you're losing guys in your secondary. So I just think that right now they're falling apart a little bit, right? They had a little bit of a moment, and now they're coming back down to earth, and they're probably ready to get out the season. I think the Lions are going in a completely different direction, so I like that a lot.
All right, your next one.
I'm going to. Can we talk about Bears Bills a little bit
Let's do
here?
it. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's do it. Listen, I'm going to stay away from that 8.5 line, but I like the over today at the 40.5 at Soldier Field. I like I just said at the top of the show. These are two quarterbacks. I'm gonna put a blue chip on there. These are two quarterbacks that I think are very comfortable in this weather. I have no problem with Josh Allen's arm strength in this weather. He's coming from Buffalo to Chicago. That's fine. That's like him walking out his front door. That's not a big deal. But I also trust Justin Fields a lot in this weather. And you saw what he did last week. He had a great passer rating. He was able to get some yards on the ground against that good Eagles defense. And I think that both these teams can help push that over to 40.5. I think that over was a little bit adjusted. I think they thought there was going to be a blizzard today in Chicago. There's not. It's sun is shining. You're outside my window right now. It looks beautiful from my 74 degree loft third
Yeah.
floor. But I think that both these teams are going to be able to score. I know the Bears don't have receivers. I know their offensive line is a mess right now. But I think Justin Fields is going to be able to help Josh Allen get to that over 40.5, the number.
So I think what I've always thought, in terms of what I've heard and sort of incorporated into my thinking, is that weather doesn't bother football players, and
Mhm.
it's wind, which
Yeah.
maybe you say that's part of the weather, but like if it's windy, that
Mhm.
bothers a quarterback, right?
Mhm.
Because it's harder to drive the ball. But if it's raining and you got a guy with maybe smaller hands, and he can't grip it very well, okay, I can see that too. But for the most part, like snow, cold, that doesn't really bother quarterbacks much, right? I mean, I'm sure it hurts a little bit more to get hit, all that kind of thing. So unless it's really windy,
Mhm.
and you got a guy that's maybe doesn't have the strongest arm, like these guys are still going to be able to throw. Josh
Mhm.
Allen has a cannon. He's got a
Mhm.
howitzer on
Mhm.
his arm. He's not going to be concerned with that. I think Justin Fields is going to be just fine as well. Yeah, that's a low line. I might join you later. I want to hit some other stuff first. Can we talk about Gardner Minshew?
Yeah.
I think he's a good football
Yeah,
player. Like
he is a good football
what's
player.
with the line moving that much? You got the
Yeah.
the Eagles, who are a really good football team. They're deep all the way through. I know Jalen Hurts is great, but Gardner Minshew is one of the best backups in the league. Like that's a
Mhm.
really nice luxury for the Eagles to have. Really smart Howie Roseman move there to
Mhm.
be able to get him in the building. And they're giving up 4.5 at Dallas because Jalen Hurts isn't in the
Mhm.
football game.
Mhm.
I don't buy that. I think
Mhm.
that I think he can keep it close. I think he can win this game. I don't see why not. He's got two good weapons in his wide receivers. He's got a good tight end. Like I'm in on this. I think this is an overreaction, and a lot of Dallas fans put money on. I'm putting a full chip on Gardner Minshew to be able to cover that spread.
And as somebody who is starting Dak Prescott today in a fantasy football playoff game, I'm very concerned for him. He just does not look good the last couple of weeks. I'm very skittish right now on Dak Prescott. I'm very down on him, and so I could see him, kind of wetting the bed a little bit against that Eagles defense, and maybe having a couple turnovers. And listen, like you said, Gardner Minshew is a damn good quarterback. He could probably be starting for like 7 teams in this league right now.
Exactly.
And he just happens to be a backup. And listen, just throw with the AJ Brown, the slant king, right? And
AJ Brown, I think, is going to have a monster game. I think you can throw it to Devontae Smith too, but I think AJ Brown is in line for a big game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to take it to New England here. I think that the Patriots right now, that was an awful loss last week, and everybody is on Jacoby Myers for that dumb lateral and the touchdown, and Mac Jones didn't save a tackle or didn't make a tackle saving play or anything like that. But throughout that game, it just looked sloppy. It looked like a sloppy Patriots team, which is very uncharacteristic of a Bill Belichick team. I'm putting a blue chip today on the Bengals. I just think that they're the superior team right now. But as crazy as it is for me to say, I think they're the better coached team right now. I don't know what is going on in New England. I think that Matt Patricia and Joe Judge and Steven Belichick with his mullet and stuff. This is probably the worst coaching staff that Bill Belichick has had in his entire New England tenure. And so I'm betting on Joe Burrow. I'm betting on Zach Taylor and that football team to handle business like they should today in New England against the Patriots. I'm taking them to cover.
This is one of my bets too. I'm trying to decide if it's a blue or an orange. I'll just put it a blue right now. Again, I might grow that. I can see this being a game that Burrow, for something happened, Belichick sees something, but Burrow is just at this stage. I almost think that we're not giving Burrow enough credit. Not you and me, but like we as people that kind of think about this game, because his processor is like the best in the league, maybe like with Mahomes has like this another level to him, but like in terms of how he sees things and how he gets the ball out. I don't know that there's anybody really better right now. I really like him. Think everybody's healthy, right? You get Jamar Chase. I think T. Higgins is fine, right? Like he's got the full complement. They're a good football team, and they're on their way to trying to win that division. They got every game's important. They're locked in and focused. I think like you said, one team's a mess. One team looks like they're getting it going, and they're ready to close out the division. I like the Bengals here. 3 points isn't enough for me to be scared away. Another team that's got it locked in. I don't care if it's Brock Purdy. I don't care if it's Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't care if it's put anybody back there. Yeah. Again, really deep team. The Niners, a lot like the Eagles. Just keep betting them. Right, 6.5 points means that if they get that 7 points, they get it. Right, like it's teasing me. Like just that 6.5 is just begging me to bet that. And I feel good. The Niners have been making me money all year, so I'm gonna stick with them. Washington had a huge letdown. Huge letdown. They tied the Giants, had a bye week, and then they lost to the Giants at home. That's a huge letdown. I don't see them traveling cross country and being able to hang with a team that's gearing up. That looks like, they look like they're going deep, right? Like that this team could probably go to the Super. They're the team that can knock off the Eagles. That's it. Like I don't see anybody else going to be able to do it in the playoffs. This is the team that can do it.
Does it feel like the NFL has a vendetta right now against Daniel Snyder? Last week, the ref gives him the thumbs up, right? And then throws the flag immediately, which is just Bush League. And then you got the other play where he's just like holding the receiver in the end zone and they don't call pass interference. It feels like the league is like, listen, you're either going to sell this football team or we're going to screw you every single week and make you lose football games. And yeah, I think Joe Montana can probably throw some Flexall 454. You remember that? And,
sure.
And go out there and probably take snaps today for the 49ers and win. Listen, I'm going to take the Dolphins on a blue chip to cover that spread -3.5. They showed a lot of us something last week going into Buffalo, into the cold, and really hanging with that Buffalo team throughout the whole game. And I was really impressed. I continue to be impressed by Mike McDaniel. I think he's a great breath of fresh air for the NFL. But most importantly, I think that they could be a sneaky playoff team, and I think that this is a get-right game for them. They're at home. They're having the Packers come. I think they have to win this football game, and I think they have to win this football game pretty big, pretty convincingly to kind of get things back on the right track, and hopefully go into the playoffs. And they could be like a team that it might be like plus 6.5 or something like that on the road in a playoff game against the Chiefs, which would be really interesting. But that's something for down the line. But I think the Dolphins are going to be able to cover that spread at home and beat the Packers pretty convincingly.
It's one of my bets as well. For me, it's a full chip. And I'll get to watch it at my in-laws. Yeah. He's a Packers fan.
Oh, good.
And so that'll be fun. Let's see him get knocked out in Miami, right? So yeah, I'm in on this. I think the Dolphins are a good football team. Not a great football team yet or anything like that, but I think they're a good football team. The Packers are not a good football team. Let's end this season on Christmas. That would be a nice Christmas present for me. So Mike, they'll do that for me. I appreciate that. I mean, we are very much kind of on the same page on all of this stuff. I would some of these lines are so low, but I'm just so spooked right now on over-unders on betting them in here, just because you never know. I mean, most of this other stuff I just don't want to touch. Right.
Yeah, Chargers was pretty tempting because I think the Colts are. How long can the Colts keep this charade up, right? And now they're starting Nick Foles, Nick Foles against Justin Herbert. That was tempting. I am going to put one more blue chip. I think Geno Smith can hang in there. I think he can hang in there. I don't think the Chiefs right now are rolling, the way teams, the way people think they are. They took the Texans right to overtime last week and had to, just something's not quite right about this Chiefs team. And so that plus 10 is a little big for me. I think Geno can keep this close. Pro Bowler Geno Smith. He's going to the Pro Bowl this year.
How about that?
I think he can keep this game close. I'm going to take them to cover that spread.
All right, you convinced me. I'm going to throw it on the Chargers. I just am so shy about the Chargers, but I think that being that they really do need to kind of run the table here. They can get the 5 seed, run the table, go on the road to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Right. Ooh. AFC South champ and win the game there. Or at least be pretty good odds if it's Chargers on the road against the AFC South team. So I think that they're all these teams are motivated, but I think they kind of see that picture like, hey man, we can grab that 5 seed and really salvage what was supposed to be kind of their coming out story. Let's get them in with a chip in a chair and see what they do. But yeah, you're right. Like Colts are a mess. That's a disaster. That 33-0 thing. By the way, like also that stupid Patriots play that cost me in this segment last. Like I bet against. I mean, unbelievable, right? The amount of like overtime games and like games that are late that are like tied up or whatever that have like ruined this. Whatever. It is what it is. Hey,
Jokic!
Merry Christmas. There is a basketball prop. Is this a good player? I've heard that he's a good player.
He's back-to-back MVP. He had a game about 2 weeks ago that only Wilt Chamberlain has done. He had over 50 points and 25 rebounds. So Nikola Jokic is a damn good basketball player, and he will definitely score more than 1 point.
Okay, so we're both getting this. This is a gift for us. So we will add this in to our mix here. We'll figure out what that does for payouts and all that kind of stuff. But this is a freebie, and we're going to take it. We would encourage you to take it as well. They play tomorrow night, so your bet would cash out tomorrow night. So anyway, everybody take this. This is a freebie. This is a promo.
And if you're a basketball guy, that's a sneaky fun game. Nuggets versus Phoenix Suns. That's a fun game. That's a fun basketball game. That's something I'm going to be watching tomorrow night. Probably over that crappy NFL game that they're going to try and throw us.
I mean, sorry, I wish I liked basketball, Ross. I mean, I wish I liked these other things, but they all kind of fell off. I had a conversation about it the other day on Twitter. If I had time to add a second sport back in, like real watch it, it'd probably be baseball because that's it's kind of my second love. But honestly, soccer might be. It's close. I played soccer, in high school. It wasn't anything great. It was more to like be in better shape for football. But I had some fun. I scored a lot of goals, and it's a fun sport. And the World Cup like got me kind of back into like, man, if I was going to add a second sport, I think it'd be fun to watch Premier League. So anyway,
It's
basketball would be real down. I'd have to have a ton of time. I don't.
it's a fun sport. Soccer is a fun sport to also bet on. When my son was a little baby, I would wake up on the Saturday mornings early with him because he'd be up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I would sit down on the sofa and kind of hold him and a cup of coffee and watch Premier League. And I got into that a little bit because that was the only sports that was on at 7:30 in the morning in Chicago. So it's actually kind of fun. Yeah.
Do you have a team?
I used to like Manchester United a lot. But then when my wife and I went to Spain a few years ago and we got to tour the stadium for Real Madrid, and we got to go underneath the stadium, they had like 250 trophies. It's just absolutely insane. And I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. And so I used to kind of get into the Real Madrid games as well, especially when Cristiano Ronaldo was still on the team.
Yeah, my soccer coach in high school was a big Real Madrid fan. So anyway, he was also the Spanish teacher. All right, PrizePicks. If you're betting with us, promo code Bears, 100% deposit match. Ross is plus 20 units on the year. I'm plus 7.8. So if I hit it big this week, maybe I can catch you. But we'll we'll see what happens here. Let's start off in Chicago. You've got a couple Chicago bets. You've got 3 Chicago bets. Let's start off with the Chicago side of it and Justin Fields.
Yeah, and we need to bounce back here. I feel like we've been struggling a little bit in PrizePicks the last couple of weeks. I'm trying to get back on the off the schneid here a little bit. I'm taking the over today for Justin Fields on those passing yards. A little disrespectful. He's got the lowest passing yards prop of anybody this week, I believe. Maybe Malik Willis might have a lower one, but 135 and a half. Listen, the conditions are not going to be that bad for Justin Fields today. I know they've got no receivers and no offensive line, and the Bills are good, and so on and so forth. I don't care. I think that Justin will still get the over today on those passing yards, and I'm going to take that.
Can he throw to himself?
Yeah.
That's the question, right? Can he get it tipped? Can he throw it off the back of, Braxton Jones's helmet, catch it, and then run? Like, that might be how he gets there. It's a super low number. I mean, it's a super low number. I don't think the win's going to be a factor. The factor is, does he have anybody to throw to? Also disrespectful in my mind is saying Gardner Minshew is only going to have 227 and a half yards, right? Like that. I like Gardner Minshew. It's going to be a theme of the show, right? We already have him in the pick segment. We got him in PrizePicks. I got him later on. Like, Gardner's my guy today. Dallas is fine, right? They're fine, but there's probably going to be some points in this game. There's probably going to be some yards. I don't think that they're going to just turn around and hand it to Miles Sanders 50 times, right? I think they're going to throw the football. So to me, he's going to put the ball in the air. He's a very competent backup. He can do this. He's accurate. He can do this. 227 doesn't bother me. I think he goes over there. I think he has 300.
Yeah, I like it. It's indoors too, right? So yeah, I like it.
Right.
Yep. Dawson Knox, he's been trending up a little bit the last couple of weeks. One thing when it gets colder, we're going to take the over on his receiving yards today. One thing when it gets colder outside, those quarterbacks tend to lean on the tight end a little bit more. I think that's a pretty low receiving number for Dawson Knox right now. I think he's going to hit that over today against that Bears defense, which is a little thin up the middle, especially with Jack Sanborn out for the year with that ankle injury. I think the Dawson Knox not only can get above 30 receiving yards, I actually think he can get in the end zone today as well. So I'm taking the over for that.
I like it. Burrow, this is a low number for Joe Burrow's completions. I went back and looked, and he has not been below this number very, very often. He's got his full complement of weapons. This, to me, just seems like a number that's respect to Belichick. When we talked about, do we need to give him that right now? Do we need to give that coaching staff this right now? It's just totally based on his stats and how good he's playing right now and the full complement of weapons. I think Burrow slings it around the yard, and he's going to have over 22 by the third quarter.
Love it, Justin. I love Joe Burrow. I love it. Listen, probably a low-scoring game today. Raiders against the Steelers. Rest in peace to Franco Harris. They are retiring his jersey number today. He just passed away, unfortunately, a couple of days ago. But I'm taking I'm taking the over on Josh Jacobs. I still think that he can get in the end zone. Sneaky good year for Josh Jacobs. And remember, at the beginning of the year, everybody thought that he was in the doghouse. They wanted to trade him, get rid of him. He's having a good year, and he's going to be an interesting player going into the offseason and see what teams are going to want his services. But I think he gets in the end zone today. So I'm going to somehow, some way, I'm going to take the over on that.
Man, that over under is so low
Yeah,
in that game. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah. What a story though. They waited that long to retire his jersey. They don't really retire jerseys in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. They finally put it on there. 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. He's been such a great man for that community, and just seems like an overall good dude. Shares a birthday with me.
Oh wow.
Kind of a random thing growing up.
Mhm,
Like Lynn Swan and Franco Harris both born on my birthday, so that's
mhm,
or I was born on their birthday. I guess they had it first. But yeah, so I've always kind of, I don't know. It's one of those weird things as a child. You pick that up, and you kind of track him throughout life.
yeah.
A very sad story that he wasn't able to be there for this honor here.
Mhm,
Justin Jefferson, I'm on him. I love this guy. 7 catches. This just feels low. This just
mhm,
feels low for him. He's cleared this multiple times. 11 targets. If you want to go that direction, that's fine too.
mhm.
The yardage is. I mean, he'll get it, but it's a little
Yeah.
high, right? I think it's at 92.5. Of those three, the 7 catches felt like the lowest one that he's probably going to achieve here. Um, I, I think the Vikings know. I think the Vikings are smart enough to know that he's very close to getting the record and that he could be the first wide receiver over 2,000 yards. They're not stupid. They're going to try to get this. So they have to make sure that they feature him, and it's their best path to scoring points anyway. So to me, I'm just going to keep putting money on Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, and with I know we believe in Gardner Minshew, but with the Hurts injury, maybe the Vikings kind of believe they can actually catch the Eagles here
Right?
to finish off the season, and for the purposes of seeding. So will be interesting from there. We got some interception bets coming up.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I'm guessing that we're both taking the overs on some young quarterbacks. I think Desmond Ritter is going to throw an interception today against that feisty Baltimore Ravens defense in Baltimore. Desmond, excuse me, did not look very good last week. He did throw interceptions. A couple of interceptions were dropped, and I think he's definitely giving one to the Ravens today.
Not so fast, my friend.
Oh,
Not so fast. I'm going the opposite direction. Kenny Pickett has been pretty good at taking care of the football.
yeah.
I don't believe in the Raiders. I don't think they're a good
Oh,
football team. So I think that he takes care of the football again today. He hasn't thrown a pick in like 4 starts ago was his last pick.
I
I
like
think
it.
he's been doing pretty good. So
I
I'm
like it.
actually going the opposite way, and I'm saying he's going to keep a clean sheet.
Let Franco Harris guide you to no interceptions today, Kenny
Let's
Pickett.
go. Let's do it.
I'm taking the over on Devin Singletary, 47 and a half rushing yards. Again, Bears super thin in that defense. No Jack Sanborn to clean up tackles. Defensive line is an absolute mess, which is why we're all talking about, Jalen Carter or Will Anderson to be, potential number 2 overall pick. I think Devin Singletary is going to get the over today on those 47 and a half rushing yards. I think the Bills are going to hand it off to him for anywhere between 10 to 15 times. And if they do that, he should get at least 50 yards today.
I don't like that bet. Just saying.
Oh,
I actually
yeah,
like the Zach Moss carrying the ball a little bit more. So
yeah,
that's my only like I think I would actually probably prefer to take the Singletary receiving plus rushing yards.
yeah,
That's all I'd say.
yeah.
I would shift it.
I like it.
Uh this is too many carries for me.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Niners want to give Christian McCaffrey 20 plus carries every week. I don't
Don't
think
want to
that
run
that's
him
a
in the
good
ground.
path.
Yeah.
And then they're playing a good defensive line
Hmm.
against Washington. That's their strength. Do you really want to run Christian McCaffrey 21 times into that Washington defensive front? I
Hmm.
don't think you do. Now, do you want him to have 20 touches? Sure, but throw
Hmm.
him the ball, right? I
Hmm.
don't think that that's a good path. He had 26 carries last week. I think that's
Hmm.
why that number is 20. But
Hmm.
I don't see the game flow going that way where they're just pounding him into the line because they need him healthy. They need him to be a centerpiece of this offense in the playoffs. Why are you going to give him 21 carries? I don't get it. If it happens, great. But like to me, just from a football sense, that number is too high for me.
I like it. Yeah, they have to keep him fresh. They have to think long term. Think the playoffs. Obviously, McCaffrey has had some injury issues in the past. So, Cal Shanahan's a very smart guy. He's got a lot of weapons in that offense, even with Debo Samuel out right now. And you're absolutely right. That Washington defense is feisty and they're physical, and you don't want Christian McCaffrey to get run down against this team today.
All right, Ross, I'll let you out of here. I teased last week that we should do some favorites. Should we do that next week at the end of the year?
We could definitely do that next week. Absolutely. I got some things in mind. TV wise, movies wise. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Let's do that. Next year will be the end of the year show anyway. So or
Yes.
like the calendar year, so New Year's Eve show. So we'll
Yes.
do some of that next week because we're at time. But
Let's do it.
good luck to you today, sir. Stay
Thank
warm.
you. You as well.
And
Enjoy your Christmas, everybody. Stay warm out there and have a safe one.
yep, same to you, Ross.
Peace.
See ya. And joined by Erik Smith of the Quarterback List. Erik, you are stuck at home.
Yeah.
So you're joining us, which is great, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Of course.
How are you? Are you staying safe? Are you staying warm?
Staying as warm as I can. When you see the windows with some ice and frost on the inside, it gets a little, worrisome. But everything's working right now, so we got power. I can't complain.
All right. You sent me your daily fantasy lineup, and you said, I'm getting weird. And I said, well, that's good because I am too, right?
Right.
So we have a couple of overlap players, which is not a surprise if you have watched this segment before, but maybe not the players that you would have thought when I said we've got a couple overlaps. And so I want to let you have the floor. First of all, how did you do last week in daily fantasy? Did you?
I don't believe it was good last week.
It wasn't good. Okay.
No.
Okay. There was a couple guys that I think that you played that did particularly well. I saw him have good stat lines, and I was like, oh man, I bet you Erik cashed like big time. So
yeah, I had Burrow. That was good. Kind of let down. So I had a touchdown from Connor and Eckler, but overall, no, I did not cash last week. So I've had better weeks.
Yeah. All right. So maybe that causes, because I did not. It was middle of the road lineup. Didn't cash. So I kind of came into today thinking, it's cold. I want some guys that are like I can count on for like some rushing volume to run. And I thought I'm gonna go with a weird lineup. Like, let's do this thing. So I'm leaning into Gardner Minshew today. Like, I'm leaning in. Let's do it. Yeah. Cheap quarterback, because I felt like I either had to go super high end and go with some of that where you wouldn't have to worry about the weather. Or I'd maybe just take like somebody who's super cheap. And who else is going to take Gardner Minshew? I don't know. Like, I might be the only one in this pool, unless there's other Eagle fans that are going for this. But so I took Gardner Minshew and I took both of his wide receivers. So if they fall, this lineup's dead. But if they hit, like, that's, to me, it was pretty good value on the two wide receivers for being as good as they are against a Dallas secondary that gives up plenty of points to wide receivers. And then I don't know. I'm going with a little Gardner magic. His first start, this year, I like it. I think he can do this with this talented roster.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Eagles have one of the best infrastructures you can have for a quarterback to step in. And it's not like Minshew's first year on the team or anything. Like, he knows the system. He knows the offense. I know they have to change it a little bit for Minshew. He's not going to run like Hurts, but no, he knows how to run this offense. We like him as a streamer this week for sure. We've got him QB 14. And I mean, really, just with the weather out there, you could probably rank him even higher. So that was my thoughts with, I have two Eagles. I have Devontae Smith. So I could see some deep balls on him. Cowboys have been having some issues in the secondary. And then Miles Sanders has been so tough to pick this year. He's been real boom bust. And I think a lot of it's just Hurts stealing the rushing work. So my thoughts on Sanders is maybe this is the week where he just gets to do all the running. So I kind of like all the Eagles in this one. So I love that stack on your end.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you started off.
Yeah. So I was working really hard to try to get both Travis Kelce and Justin Jefferson in my lineups. Jefferson, especially, we don't have to worry about the weather. He's the best player in the league, just about. Like that's kind of where I started, and it was just real hard to make that work. I ended up with Kelce just because tight end is such a mess overall. I was like, I do think that's a pretty big advantage. So everything kind of spiraled after that, because fitting Kelce in your lineup is very difficult here. So I ended up with Fields because I see this as bad weather game, but he's just running like crazy. And if I get 15 carries out of him and a touchdown or two on the ground, like, he's going to pay off. So that's kind of how I ended up on Fields. There's no stacks to go with him because I think he could just take all the work here. So Other than that, like I was between Pacheco and McKinnon for the Chiefs. I think they're both in good spots against Seattle at home, and Pacheco was a little cheaper, so I pivoted to him. I was happy I could still afford Sanders, like I said. But yeah, this was a real tough one with all the weather, with all the backup quarterbacks. I'm clearly punting defense here, but it's a cold weather game at home. So, I know you probably do not feel great about the Bears defense against the Bills, but let's just get a Josh Allen fumble to the house, and then that pays off for me. So punting defense, go with Fields for the upside, and kind of piecing together some cheaper pass catchers here.
So I went elite running back. So I went with the highest price player on the board, Derrick Henry. So he's going up against the worst run defense,
Right.
and it's a cold game, right? They've got a backup quarterback. Everybody in the stadium knows that he's going to run it.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's see if I can fit him in, right?
Mhm.
Like let's see if this can happen. I mean, I like the Texans to potentially upset here and win this football game, but I also think that there's a pretty strong chance that Derrick Henry just has 200 yards rushing, right? Like it's just
Right.
one of those where, okay, the obvious thing is that Derrick Henry just absolutely eats. So I wanted to fit him in, and then kind of the same thing in Cleveland. Like you've got a dome team coming to play, bad weather game. I mean, it's Nick Chubb. He's the best pure runner in the game. Like, just feels like a game that he could do some real damage here. That offense hasn't exactly been clicking. I like their defense. Also, it's the same. That's the point of me taking the Browns defense is, it's just take advantage of a not so good offense and a dome team coming to a cold weather environment. So I paid up big, and the way that I could kind of afford to do that was to take, I don't know, like is this a punt on the tight end? I don't know, but it's just a dude that was super cheap that had a good matchup that. They'll probably have to throw. And then the Cook pick for me, he's been getting more carries. He's been getting more involved in the offense. It's a game where, I mean, I hate to just bury the Bears, but they continue to lose good players on defense. Like no Jack Sanborn. Now there's no Jalen Johnson. Like, Kendall Vildor, that their other corner is out. Like, I don't know, man. Like, what's going to happen? It feels like the Bills should get out to a quick early lead, and then their best pure running option, particularly to salt away games, is Cook right now. And so the Bears are terrible at defending the run. I think Cook if he gets 12, 15 carries because of game flow, you could be looking at high yardage total. He gets in the end zone once. Like, this is to me, this is like a really. It's a flex. I mean, it's a flex play. It's a home run call, whatever. In terms of, you could say this guy could get 0, right? Like I get that, but I'm picturing a scenario with game flow where he's actually pretty involved in this offense.
Yeah, and they kind of seem to. They're one of those backfields where one week, Singletary gets 70% of the snaps. The next week, Cook jumps up to 50. Like, it's kind of picking your poison from week to week. But they did get Cook involved in the red zone last week. He caught a touchdown pass. They're finding ways to get him the ball. So I don't hate it. I did think this game was interesting just because it's one of these games we want to avoid from a fantasy perspective, like one of the coldest weather games, the Bears-Bills game. That and the Browns game's another bad one. There's a few that are just going to be brutally cold. So I just wonder if that slows down the Bills and keeps things closer. I know you're down on the Bears defense, but they've given some teams some fights lately, like some good teams, some fights. Their defense scored 7 points against the Eagles last week. Like, it's fantasy scoring can be a little fluky here. So I don't know. We'll see how much the weather impacts things here, but picking a running back in this game is certainly a good idea.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I have a hard time knowing who's on the field.
Yeah.
And I cover this team. Like,
right.
like, I'm like, wait, who is that? Who's that number? Right. And then you doubt yourself. It's like, is that guy's name Matt Adams? That can't be right. I mean, like, you get to that point in the year and it's like, I don't, at some point it doesn't take much for something to crumble. And again, I thought they played out of their minds last week against the Eagles. They caused 3 turnovers against the Eagles, which doesn't happen. Right. So that was where those 7 fantasy points came from. That's an outlier. That hasn't been the case for the Bears defense, but I'm not trying to talk you out of the Bears defense. I'm just saying, to me, it looks like this could be just a real blowout. I think that it's cold. Like, it's cold. Don't get me wrong. but I don't think it's not as cold as it was yesterday or the day before, right? So there might be a little bit of that, and then if it's not windy, I think that the Bills will still try to throw the football. So that's just why wouldn't you? Like if you're going against the Bears, like number 4 or 5 corners, right? Like I mean, it's not pretty out there. Undrafted free agent has been playing well, but like still undrafted free agent, that kind of thing.
Right.
Anybody else? Looks like you got Boyd. We both had Shark. This is just try to get in on that Detroit offense, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Chark was doing really well coming back from injury, catching deep balls, and then he hit Sauce Gardner last week, and that kind of cratered his production. But that will happen to a lot of good players, so I'm kind of writing that one off. And if you take that out, he looks like an awful nice bargain for that price. So Boyd was just fitting someone in a passing game that I like, where the game's not miserable conditions. Like, the Patriots have a really good defense. As much as we're kind of dunking on Belichick and the rest of this coaching staff right now, like they're like top 5, top 10 in every important defensive metric right now. So it's not the greatest spot for the Bengals offense, but sometimes that kind of trickles down to Boyd. If the top options are a little harder to get the ball to, he sees a spike week. So that was kind of just fitting in with leftover money who I thought could put up a touchdown. But other than that, I really like Smith. I like Chark. DeAndre Swift continues, like he got 9 targets last week. I know the snap share is not quite where we want it, but he's getting passing game work. And again, I like this Lions offense, and it's not the worst weather game in the world. So that's kind of the thought with the 2 Lions here. I played around with getting DJ Moore on the other side of this, just kind of maybe expecting some more points here, but just couldn't afford them in the end.
I had Moore in the lineup at some point, and then it shifted things around. I think so I could get Chubb in. I think that was my concession there, but yep, the good pick there. All right, so let's move on to this disaster. That I mean, I had a chance 2 weeks ago, and then I have just been dumb. So this is now a dead pool for me because this is just pathetic. So
sorry, Jeff.
Who you got?
Oh, my up first this week? Okay.
Yeah.
So I will say, last 2 weeks, the Cowboys sure made it interesting for me. The Bengals were down 17-0 in the first half. So those 2 last weeks could have flipped pretty easily. But I'm definitely starting to run out of options I like here. But I am going to go with the Chargers in Indianapolis. I mean, the Colts are such a weird team. So are the Chargers, too. Like, if you told me the Colts won this game, I would not be the least bit surprised. But Chargers are getting all their weapons healthy now. They've got Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler seems to be good to go. We love Justin Herbert. So, I'm going to take this one, but I'm starting to run out of those options that I feel real good about. So, even though I may be able to hang on for the season, these next 4 weeks or 4 games are going to be very interesting for me trying to pick a team here. There you go.
We'll take the free square on the board, I guess. I just don't see a scenario where the Bears win this game. But again, if they do, then I have 3 strikes in a row, and that's fun. That'll be a new thing. I bet against the Bears once, a Patriots game, and they came out and surprised a lot of people after that mini bye. That was definitely influenced by the fact that I was there in Chicago for the terrible loss against Washington, and I was just kind of betting against them. And then I bet on them in week 10 and they lost, even though they were up. They kind of fumbled that one away. So I've had a kind of a weird time with these Chicago Bears, but just be forewarned. I will probably be betting against them again. This won't be the last time, but we're getting to this point of the year where you're running out of teams. And if I would have gotten off of my shtick last week and just taken the Packers, I wouldn't have taken another X. Or if I would have figured out that the Vikings played on the day before, even though they came back from 33-0, and that's no great thing to take to the bank either. But yeah, that was I boxed myself into a corner last week with the Washington pick, and I thought that they'd win, but I mean, there was the funny thing is, like, I was pretty convinced the Lions were going to win last week, and I should have just taken them, right? Like, even though I'm really influenced by the spread, right? Like, that's a lot of what I do is like, okay, who's got the biggest spread? Okay, those are the biggest favorites. Like, who do you like out of that, or do you want to try to keep them? But like, so I did that. The Commanders had the biggest spread of the teams that I was considering, and so I went that direction. But to me, I really like the Lions. It was my favorite bet of the week, so I should have just bet the Lions. But anyway, it is what it is. So I'm gonna take. We're both taking kind of free squares, although Chargers is never a free square.
No, never. Yeah, I don't know if there's any others you had your eye on. Like, I mean, if for other people out there, obviously some of these were taken for me, but even like Tampa Bay, 7.5 favorites in Arizona. I know it's McSorley at quarterback, but man, after watching that Tampa Bay team last week, it's hard to trust them. Like, I don't know if you saw any other big spreads or teams for, anyone else out there who's still alive that you really liked, but I don't know. This is a little bit of a tricky week unless you somehow have like the Chiefs or the, Bills or someone left.
I don't know how, I mean, I don't know how you would, for most people, have some of those teams available.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the Vikings at home -4 against the Giants. Giants are just too weird of a team.
Yeah.
I kind of was writing them off. I thought, okay, they've come back to earth, but then they're they're still winning football games. So okay.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right. If you have the Bucks, which I do, that would be the other big spread that you would consider 7.5. But they're on the road, and I don't know anything about. I don't even know anything about this guy, and I just, I really don't. And I would worry that, the Bucks have just been bad all year. Maybe they're just bad. Yeah. Like at some point, you have to kind of just say, is this team just bad? If they're bad at football, then it's tough to trust them. You're just getting to the point of the year where you have to, though.
Yeah. I actually saw a little bit of McSorley in the preseason. They played the Bengals one week, and then I think I covered one of their games for what we saw. I would describe him, for my limited viewing of him, as he looks like a slot receiver playing quarterback. He'll run around, he'll do some things, just not as athletic as you would like for a guy running around doing some things. But in that Cliff Kingsbury offense, I could see them lucking into some points here, but he didn't look super impressive.
This is like that Streveler guy the other night.
He's a lighter version of Streveler. Streveler is more of a hammer, I think, right?
That was wild, where they benched Wilson, and then all of a sudden this guy comes in and he just like drops back, gets to the top of his drop, and then just takes off. And I was like, what is happening? Who is this guy? And I didn't even know he was a human person. Why aren't they playing Joe Flacco? Like, but this guy gave us a spark. You're like, okay. Did Joe Flacco just like, I don't really want to go in. I'm fine.
The Zach Wilson thing's bad. We've got a lot of Jets fans in our Discord at QB lists. We've kind of made fun of the Jets a lot this year, so I try to hold off on it. But man, that's getting benched for Streveler. That's rock bottom for Zach Wilson. And I've never seen it with him either. Like, I know people have talked about his big play ability, but he's not. It's not like he's Justin Fields or he's Josh Allen. Like, he's not that physical. He's not even the athlete that Joe Burrow is, I don't think. So, if he's not going to play in structure, I just don't see how it's going to work.
And he's also like really light framed. So he's a guy that's not really built for punishment, as a lot of quarterbacks are going to take punishment. He's just not built for it. And I never saw it. I mean, just from the moment I was like, this is kind of people taking crazy pills, and when it was like, no, the Jets are going to take him, I was like, that's insane. That is insane. But okay, let's move on. And then the Niners taking Trey Lance, and I was like, I mean, that's a gamble. That's a dice throw, man. Like, okay, you're betting on this huge ceiling, but I don't even know that where his floor is at. So how are you doing that over Justin Fields? Again, people outthinking themselves.
I agree.
And so I never saw it with that. It didn't make any sense to me. But again, these people make a lot of money. They're paid for these opinions. But sometimes the obvious answer is the right answer. And they really outthought themselves. Imagine what the Jets would look like with Justin Fields.
I mean, he played at a big time school. He had tons of success. He's a smart guy. Like, I never understood the Fields part of it. I could understand people falling for Wilson and falling for Lance. That part I kind of got, but the Fields stuff was kind of crazy to me personally.
Yeah. All right. So fantasy. It's kind of a big week.
Yeah.
Let me ask, before we talk about me, let me ask, how are your leagues going? How's the Scott Fish Bowl, all the big stuff? How is your home league? Where are you at?
The home league is my worst league out of every league I have. So I've long moved on from that one. It's bizarre because every other league I'm doing well in. Like I'm still alive in the staff league at QB list. I'm still alive in Scott Fishbowl, looking in good shape, although Hurts being out is not helping me there. But I picked up actually, I think I picked up Minshew to fill in for him. So yeah, that's good. I got Mahomes and Minshew, so that's good. But no, my dynasty leagues are looking great. I'm in good shape. So fingers crossed. This week, fantasy wise, is a mess because of the weather and all the backup quarterbacks. So that is the topic this week in fantasy: is what do we do with all these weather situations and bad quarterbacks?
Okay, so let's start there. Joe Burrow is my guy.
Yeah,
but I also have Justin Fields. So, do you roll with Burrow in what could be a difficult matchup with New England and at New England? But he's been playing really good football. He's been doing really well. Do you go with Justin Fields? Probably negative game script, maybe bad weather or at least cold-ish. Like he's got his other running back, so maybe that cuts into his workload, right? So Khalil Herbert's back. So like where do you? He's got nothing for wide receiver. I mean, he's throwing to wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 8, right? Like that. What do you do?
It's tough because so first of all, I'll start. We have both of them as top 5 options this week, so you're in a good spot here. We've got Fields number 3 and Burrow number 5. I know that Fields has no options, but he's been a top 10 quarterback on a weekly basis for 9 weeks now, I think, maybe 8. And that's with a bunch of sub 200-yard passing games. Like if he is going to keep carrying 15 times a game, it's really hard to bench him. Like just that rushing ability, those touchdowns, that gives you more points. It's really hard to go away from that. I have always been worried about the Bears as this season gets near the end, that they're not going to want to risk his health. But I mean, he ran 15 times for 95 yards last week. Like I don't know what changed between last week to this week. So you would know better than I would, but as long as Fields is going to keep running 10 plus times a game, I would probably go with him. I mean, this game for Burrow in New England, like this would be kind of a bad weather game in a normal week. It's just not awful this week, but it's still cold in New England. And I don't know. I mean, it's just Fields just has a rock solid floor with that rushing ability. So unless you see something from a Bears perspective where they're going to take it easy on him, I would go Fields, but I get it. I mean, it's just Burrow on the road in New England. That is a tough matchup.
Well, you're the Bengals guy, right? Yeah. And I'm a Bears guy. So I feel like, are we both leading with worry because we're conditioned to worry about our own team, or is it like, are we being objective? Like that's the only thing I'm worried about. Like where are we at with them from that perspective?
Yeah. And I mean, Burrow, he threw 4 touchdowns last week, but that was also because Brady just had an epic meltdown in the second half. It was a little rough overall, the offense. There's some pressure on him. New England's got a really good pass rush. That's the big problem for the Bengals. But again, like you said, I'm conditioned to just worry as a Bengals fan, but they are on a 6-game winning streak. So at this point, you can't go wrong with Burrow. It's just Fields has been so good. I mean, Burrow still has these like QB 14, 13 weeks from time to time. Fields has just been locked in every week. So I don't know. It's if you want me to talk you into Burrow, I can.
It's a game time decision for me on that one. I'm really struggling because I worry that at some point there's just nothing there, or it just leans into this like we just need to hand the ball off a bunch kind of thing because we've got the 2 backs now. I don't know, but
that is the worry. The Bengals are going to be playing to win this game throughout. They're not going to just say, "Oh, let's take it easy on Burrow this game." I could see that happening with Fields eventually, so I do get that. Fields has higher upside, I believe. So
sure, yep, that's true. Okay, so wide receivers, Justin Jefferson. I think I'm going to play him.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, now we get into DeAndre Hopkins, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin. That's probably going to play all of those guys, but those are my wide receivers. I have Treylon Burks, but I don't think he's in this conversation.
No.
Running back, Kenneth Walker. Do we feel okay about playing him? He's been banged up a little bit.
I mean, he survived last week. That was a short week. He was coming off an injury. He did pretty well. I don't believe there are any setbacks, nothing going on. He even caught some passes, so that's nice. Chiefs defense is not great. So as long as they can hang in there, Geno keeps him relatively competitive. He's in a good spot for me. I've got him RB19 and he's kind of in that range. He could easily be RB14, like I think he's a solid play this week for sure. He's just talented. That offense compared to some of the other situations around the league, that Seahawks offense is pretty good.
All right. So let me list a few guys for RB2 and you tell me.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson.
Okay. So I feel like I'm irrationally high on Swift most weeks. So I completely admit that. He would be my highest
scoring, by the way.
Well, I'm sorry?
Standard scoring.
Okay. That changes things for sure. Yeah, standard scoring, he's more in the kind of RB 20s, 30s most weeks. It's mainly that passing game work we want for Swift, and that's a big deal. So yeah, I think in that circumstance, I would go with Mostert. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anyone else there. It was Swift, Mostert, Singletary, and Robinson, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I would go with Mostert there. We talked about him on the Sit Star podcast. There's a little worry if Jeff Wilson's back. Like, they kind of just seem to flip-flop these running backs at times, and it's not entirely sure who the lead back is. I mean, remember when Mostert missed a week and it looked like Wilson was taking over, and then Mostert came back from injury and he was the lead back again, So I don't exactly know what McDaniel's doing there at running back, but Mostert's generally about 60% of the snaps, even when Wilson's there. Packers are a top 5 matchup on the ground. They're allowing 5 yards a carry. Like, this is a good spot. We've kind of seen the running game go up and down for Miami, but it's at least a team that's going to score. This isn't a bad weather situation here. So I think Mostert is the best, especially in a standard league. You're just looking for a touchdown. So I think that's a good spot for him.
Okay. That's where I'm at.
Okay.
So wide receivers, again, do you start? Hopkins, Higgins, and Godwin for 2 spots. Let's do it that way.
Pick 2 out of Hopkins, Higgins, and Godwin.
Yeah.
I would play Godwin for sure. He's got his starting quarterback. He's in a dome in Arizona. He's been their passing game looked good in the first half last week against the Bengals until Brady just started turning the ball over. Godwin's getting a ton of volume. So I would put Godwin in the mix for sure. Higgins and Hopkins are like right next to each other in the rankings. Like, Hopkins is a leap of faith for sure. He still got 11 targets a game when Colt McCoy was in. So it's just kind of a matter of how bad is McSorley. I would not be worried about Hopkins getting the ball. Like, they're going to throw it to him. I would be tempted to go with Higgins just because he's got Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. And we've seen up and down weeks from Higgins. We've seen New England scheme people out of games. Like, there are worries here, but I think at the end of the day, I'd go down swinging with Higgins. You got Burrow, you got Higgins. Let's hope that he gets the touchdown. Especially in a standard league too. Yeah, you want someone who can reach the end zone, and who knows how many points the Cardinals put up.
Okay. So now you can still play Hopkins in the flex.
Yeah.
Or those running backs that you passed on. So Singletary, Swift, or Robinson.
I would still go with Hopkins. I know it feels bad. I get a lot of it's how many passing attempts do we think they're going to have and how many are going to go towards Hopkins. And I find it hard to believe they're going to throw the ball deep to Hollywood Brown. They don't have a lot of tight end options. Like, the ball is going to find its way to Hopkins. So I would go with the volume there personally. And he's just a good player. Like, I just worry about Singletary with Cook eating into his work from time to time, with Allen stealing work. And then Brian Robinson looks good, but a matchup at San Francisco.
It's a brutal matchup.
I would stick with Hopkins personally, but I mean, standard league, whoever you feel like has the best shot at a touchdown, I suppose. But I don't feel great about Robinson or Singletary necessarily.
All right,
is that where you're at? Did I talk you out of anything?
No. We're on the same page. I mean, I think Swift is the guy that I feel like I would be, that I feel most like, am I missing something here? But there's just, Carolina's defense is okay, and it's just, he gets vultured by Williams, and I don't know. It's a tough one with him. He's been disappointing. He was my second pick. That's kind of brutal. The Burrow Fields thing, I'm struggling with. I'll admit. I'm going back and forth. The only other thing, I mean, I have Mark Andrews for tight end. I know that's not a great thing with the backup quarterback, but like, it is what it is. I only have one tight end. Niners and Bucks defense. I think I'm playing the Niners just because their defense has been so good, and I just don't think I can afford to bench them. But it's not they're both live, right? Like those are both
Mhm.
probably top 5 plays. I just think Niners right now I have a hard time sitting the Niners. They've been so consistently good, and it's maybe not the best matchup in the world, but the matchup's fine.
Yeah, I mean they're producing fantasy points against the Dolphins, against the Bucks, against good, I don't know. They've got it done against good offenses. So I think they're so talented. You stick with the Niners.
That's it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think right now I'm just down to the Fields versus Burrow thing. So,
Yeah, it's funny that these are our teams here.
yeah.
I mean, like Burrow does always have a way to figure it out. Like they looked bad last week. They were down 17-0. He throws 4 touchdowns in the second half. So even when it's a bad situation, he tends to get there in the end. He's got a long touchdown streak going. It's just if you told me that Fields is running 15 times again in this game, I'm going with Fields. That's the big question: is are they going to plow him ahead in cold weather all game?
Yeah, I don't know the answer, obviously.
I mean, have they been taught? I mean, it's a similar matchup to last week. It's at home against a really good team. I know they obviously want to keep the good vibes going for next year. So I'm not sure if this is all about like, hey, let's try to compete with these good teams so we have confidence for next year, or if they're just eventually going to be like, okay, we've seen enough from Fields. Let's shut this down. That's what I just don't know.
I think they're going to play him. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think they see a reason to not play him.
Well, not
But
bench him, but you know what I mean. Like, hey, let's just give David Montgomery
protect
30
him.
carries today.
Yeah, they haven't really shown any signs of doing
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the only thing that's coming to mind is that you've got Khalil Herbert back. So that gives you that explosive running back option.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that Fields didn't put up great numbers, when Herbert was in, but Herbert's been out 4 weeks.
Mhm.
So I don't know. That's my one kind of concern. But then on the other hand, and I don't know how much these guys think about this or talk about this in terms of records and numbers, but I think that they're probably in on trying to get him the record for quarterback rushing yards. He
Yeah.
needs 207 yards to break it.
Okay.
3 games, right? So I think
Yeah.
in maybe I'm being silly, but I think coaches can kind of, hey man, it's a lost season. We know we're not winning football games. We have
Yeah.
Even if they won the last 3, they're still going to be a bad record overall, right?
Yeah.
I think they clearly want to win football games, but I also think that hey man, there's something there. Like let's get him a record. Let's put him in the books. So I think there might be something with that too. Maybe I'm wrong.
No.
I think so highly of the Bills, and I just I mean, we didn't even talk about Cody Whitehair, who was terrible last week. He's out. You're now down to, I don't know who's starting at left guard. Maybe somebody can tell me. I've been asking that question all week. It may be Larry Borum, who's their swing tackle, who started off at the right tackle position. It may be Jatir Carter, who was a 6th round, 7th round rookie, like a late pick. I'm interested to see what he looks like, but you're going to have somebody making their first start at left guard today.
Yeah.
You got Michael Schofield, who's a replacement level player playing the other guard. You got Sam Musfer, who's been playing center all year, but he's not that good of a player, right? It's a bad offensive line, right? They still continue to somehow put up yards and points,
Right.
but you worry just how much punishment he's going to take standing back there throwing the football. I don't see it, right? So they're going to have to get super creative. He's going to be on the move, which maybe that you're saying, like, I mean, you're saying in a way like I'm playing him as a running back, which I'm not saying he's a running back. I'm saying for fantasy purposes, though, you're playing him for his running stats.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't know that I feel good enough about that when Burrow's got his full complement of weapons, but then on the other hand, you got Matthew Judon, and that Patriots rush has been great, and that's what Bengals struggle with is a good defensive line team. So I don't know. It's 2 top 5 options, and I'm like dying over here thinking I got nothing.
Those are the toughest sometimes. I mean, yeah, just matchup wise, Patriots have the 4th best pressure rate in the league, but they are allowing more fantasy points than the Bills. You're right. I mean, the Bills have allowed 5th fewest to the quarterback position, so it's a tough matchup in a couple different ways. I guess for Burrow, I would maybe see something similar to last week where the yardage total isn't crazy, but they got some short fields from Mac Jones turnovers, and the Bengals defense is playing awesome. So I don't think Burrow's going to leave you miserable this week. Like he's going to throw a couple touchdowns. I guess it's just really a matter of how worried you are about Fields, I would say. So it's I am a sucker for the rushing quarterbacks, so I would probably go Fields personally. But I mean, Burrow rushes in some touchdowns. He's not a zero, so it's a tough one for sure. We have him. We have Fields 3, we have Burrow 5, and it looks like expert consensus has Fields 4 and Burrow 5. So this is just a tough decision, Jeff. It's I don't know which one will make you feel worse here. Like as a Bears fan, if you leave Fields on the bench and he goes off, or if you start him and he plays poorly, like which is going to ruin your Saturday?
That's a good question.
That's what you got to go with.
There's a FOMO element to all these things, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's an interesting way to think about this. I don't have any answer for you there, Eric. I'm gonna have to think about that for the next 55 minutes.
It's ticking for sure. I guess Fields has been so good. Like it's been since week 5 since he wasn't a QB1, top 12 quarterback. So that's all I would say.
Where's he going to go next year?
It's going to be an interesting discussion, just quarterback in general, because I think people are going to start drafting these guys a lot earlier. Josh Allen was like a 3rd-round pick last year in a lot of leagues. I think a lot of them are going to start creeping up into that 3rd, 4th round, and maybe even earlier. I would imagine top 5 rounds, right? I mean, he's been awesome this year. So you're going to have Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, and Fields is right in there. I bet it's 5th round or earlier.
Pretty amazing.
But we might correct this year. We might start drafting quarterbacks earlier next year, just because I don't know, running backs kind of been disappointing. So a lot of people are just being like, just give me my Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes and I'll figure it out. So we might see a little bit of a change next year. It's going to be fun.
I think you might be right. I waited on Burrow. I didn't wait on Burrow. I waited until the tier was almost gone and I took Burrow. Like that was my strategy, which worked. But again, the whole time I was like, man, do I try to get Josh Allen?
Right.
Because you just want that cheat code where he's just going to win you a couple of weeks,
Yeah. In my home league, I drafted Trey Lance. When he got hurt, I immediately pivoted to Justin Fields, and I played him during all of his bad games and then gave up on him. And no, the rest is great. So
I took Lance because of our conversation preseason as my kind of backup. And then, which I get it, like elite surroundings, like, from an on paper standpoint, it made a lot of sense. And then he got hurt and I was just like, I'm fine. I'll just carry Burrow and just whatever. And then somebody dropped Fields after those games. And I was like, So
good call.
Yeah. Good times. So, all right. Well, we'll get out of here. Good luck to everybody on your playoff run, your bets, your props, whatever. Hopefully you can line your Christmas stockings with a little extra green paper. We'll be back next week and we will be talking, into the year, into the calendar year. We'll do a little New Year's show. Maybe, I don't know about champagne in the morning, but something. So thanks for joining us again and we'll see you then.